We traditionally measure government by its physical outputs, miles of paved roads, schools built, or the volume of cases in our courts. However, these are merely the infrastructure for the government's actual product. Trust is the baseline requirement that allows a citizen to believe the rules are fair and the help is real. When this trust evaporates, physical infrastructure becomes a hollow shell. No amount of funding can fix a system that the public has decided to ignore. Consider a modern, well-funded school where parents have stopped attending conferences. When leadership remains stagnant for decades, families often conclude that their voices no longer influence the curriculum or the culture. The empty desks signal that parents have simply stopped believing the institution listens. We see this in social services as well. Domestic violence victims, or those struggling with addiction, often avoid available help because they anticipate bureaucratic indifference rather than support. Even when the buildings are staffed and the programs are fully funded, lack of trust causes public participation and compliance to plummet. When an institution feels unresponsive, the public withdraws. This creates a hidden crisis, where services exist on paper, but the community connection is severed. This disconnect is a symptom of a systemic disease, institutional drift. Healthy institutions begin with an outward focus. Their primary objective is determining how to help the community. Over time, the organization's gaze starts looking inward. Protecting the internal process becomes more important than the original public mission. Policy decisions shift from solving community problems to maintaining the internal bureaucracy. The mission becomes secondary to the preservation of the organization itself. This drift transforms public servants into defensive entities that prioritize rules and procedures over human outcomes. As leadership tenures stretch into decades, decision-makers often become insulated from the public they serve. This lack of turnover creates institutional distance, where the leadership's perspective is shaped by internal meetings rather than the public's reality. This distance manifests in courts that prioritize rigid procedure over justice, or workforce programs that continue training people for industries that disappeared years ago. Long-term insulation limits the intake of new information. This leads to a misunderstanding of current community needs, which generates policies that are disconnected from the problems they are meant to solve. These disconnected policies are the visible mechanisms that destroy public trust. Every time a program fails to help, the gap between the people and the institution widens. Term limits are often discussed as a way to punish political corruption, but their structural purpose is more specific. They force organizational renewal. By limiting tenure, we ensure that an institution cannot remain insulated from the community forever. Fresh leadership introduces new priorities and asks the mission-driven questions that long-term insiders often stop asking. Stagnant institutions often fall into a doom loop. Entrenchment creates distrust, which leads to public withdrawal and results in poor outcomes for the community. Term limits function as a reset mechanism. Rotating the leadership stops this downward momentum by disrupting the status quo. This disruption starts a growth loop. Leadership renewal signals accountability, which builds trust. Increased trust leads to higher public participation, providing the institution with better information and creating better results. Regular renewal reminds the public that the institution belongs to the community, not the managers. We must consider the long-term impact of these systems on the children who inherit them. Children learn civic participation by observing fair, responsive systems. Conversely, witnessing an unaccountable bureaucracy that ignores their parents' voices teaches them lifelong cynicism. Circulating power ensures that the institution remains subordinate to the people it serves. It prevents a small group of leaders from becoming more important than the mission itself. A healthy society requires this continuous self-renewal. When we allow new voices to lead, trust can grow, leaving behind public institutions that are worthy of the public's confidence.
Conservative, proven, ready to lead.